This 2018 draft class is quite something. If you actually go and look at the names, the amount of really talented NBA players in this class, like there's legitimately like 20 guys ranging from superstar to great role player. If we're talking about a draft class where Jared Vanderbilt is like the 18th best player, you've got yourself a deep ass draft class, and that's not to suggest there's not some extremely talented guys at the absolute top. So regardless of how well that last draft video did, we're going back even more in time and we're going to tackle what I think has the potential to be a top 5 draft class of all time, and that is the 2018 NBA draft. Before I continue on with this video, if you end up enjoying it, then please be sure to subscribe to the channel. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference in how it performs in the YouTube algorithm. There's a reason why people beg for you to drop a like, dude. It makes a world of difference, for real. Like, just, it's right there. If you're on your phone, turn your screen. It's right there. If you're on your desktop, why are you watching YouTube videos on your desktop? You're weird. But anyways, you can see the like button. Hit the son of a bitch. Unless I offended you by making fun of you and your desktop. Anywho, let's get into this thing. Obviously, with the number 1 overall pick, the Phoenix Suns select Luka Doncic. I don't know that I need to elaborate on that. All I know is, especially being that Luka did what he did to the Suns in the 2nd round this year, it's certainly kind of hilarious to think about him on that team. But, of course, Luka, Devin Booker going forward, honestly a better situation than he ended up in Dallas. It's going to be a hell of a thing. I am interested, actually, if Luka would really break out to the fullest extent that he could next to Devin Booker. But either way, this is a no-brainer decision in hindsight. To a lot of people on draft night, was already a no-brainer decision, but here we are. Again, obviously, with a number 2 pick, the Sacramento Kings select Trae Young. I don't feel the need to elaborate on this. Trae Young is obviously the 2nd best player from this draft class, and it's obvious he should go number 2. Moving on, De'Aaron Fox, probably gonna have to be traded, but Trae Young is worth it. So there you go. Here's where we get potentially controversial. Pick number 3 to the Hawks, they are getting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, first of all, if you're a Hawks fan, even though losing Trae sucks, Shai is definitely not a bad consolation prize, but also there is some debate between Shai and DeAndre Ayton as to who's the actual better player. To me, it's kind of obvious that Shai is better, but even if they were on equal footing, something to me that I think is a huge part of like the way that I view the game is when it comes to who I'm drafting, if there's 2 options and one of them is a shot creating guard and the other one is a center, and they're of relatively equal talent and value, I'm going to take that shot creating guard if I don't already have one, because a perimeter player is more important than a big man. That said, with the number 4 pick, the Grizzlies are going to take DeAndre Ayton. I do understand there are a handful of people in the Jaren Jackson Jr. is actually better than DeAndre Ayton camp, and I can't fault them for that because Jaren is an unbelievable defensive player, but simply just because of his health problems and the foul problems he's had historically, I would take Ayton over Jaren by just a little bit. But Jaren is definitely a damn good NBA player, not to discredit him. And speaking of which, if we get to the number 5 pick, the Dallas Mavericks are going to be selecting Jaren Jackson Jr. Now, I'm not really going to bother speculating on like what trade might have gone down, because of course the Mavericks were looking to trade this pick and they ended up getting Luka, and the Hawks exchange happened and all that. I'm not going to bother with all that. We're just going to go in the order in which the lottery put these teams. But Jaren Jackson Jr. is definitely a bit of a downgrade from Luka as a pick, so they'd still be looking for their franchise cornerstone going forward, as good as Jaren is. Also, I just had a thought. Rookie DeAndre Ayton kind of just being the only scoring option might actually be so good that he ruins the Ja pick, but also the Grizzlies jumped so many spots in the lottery to get the Ja pick anyways. That's probably not true, so never mind. With the number 6 pick, the Orlando Magic select Michael Porter Jr. Michael was easily the biggest surprise of draft night when he ended up falling all the way to, I believe it's the 13th pick that he went. A lot of people were expecting him to be bordering on a top 5 pick, and he was actually originally projected to be the 1st pick in this year's draft before health issues became a problem. I remember coming into this draft, and especially the 2 or 3 years ahead of time, Michael Porter Jr. was the only thing anyone could talk about because he was a high school phenom. That said, injury absolutely set him back, and apparently the injury concerns were more severe than we thought because he fell as far as he did. In fact, I actually remember because the Bulls had the 7th pick when they did not take him, I was furious until I watched team after team after team for 6 more picks pass on the guy, and then I was like, okay, maybe the Bulls know something that I didn't know, as the rest of the league front offices seem to. But Michael Porter Jr., though health has been a concern for him, guy is an absolute bucket. It would be interesting to see how he would work in Orlando, because while he is a bucket, he's primarily a play finisher, not a play creator, and Orlando doesn't really have that many great playmakers at this point, or really now. So it'd be interesting to see how he scores, because he's primarily someone who scores within the flow of the offense, but the Magic don't have a good offensive system, nor players that complement his skill set. So Michael might actually have it rough in Orlando for a little bit, and potentially he would be a trade chip just simply because of how poor the fit there is. Also, if he ends up missing his rookie season due to injury, that's also a factor. So weird stuff going on with this Orlando hypothetical. It could go a million different ways, hence why I talked about it so damn long. With the number 7 pick, the Chicago Bulls select Robert Williams. Robert is going to win Defensive Player of the Year at some point. Like, he arguably should have won it this year, because honestly, I think he's a better defender than Marcus Smart. And the offensive upside that he has yet to be really properly utilized, because a big man that can pass the way that he can, that's something you need to take advantage of. If Robert develops even a halfway decent jump shot, he's going to be a pretty damn good offensive player while being one of the best defensive players in basketball. And for this guy to be the 7th pick in this fucking draft, I just told you a Defensive Player of the Year level center is someone who would be the 7th pick. That's the kind of quality of draft class we're talking about right here. I don't want that to go unmentioned, because holy shit. Also worth mentioning, the Chicago Bulls at this time were still trying to go with Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen as their duo of the future until they realized that Lauri Markkanen is a role player, but a complimentary defensive big man is exactly what they were looking for to put next to Lowry, hence why they drafted Wendell Carter Jr. originally, who would not be a bad pick here even in a redraft. But yeah, defensive big man is exactly what they were looking for at the time, and it still makes sense for them here. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, they select Anthony Simons. I am taking Simons over Sexton, and Sexton is remaining outside of my top 10 picks because I'm only doing 10 picks for this video as I did in the first one, if that one was not clear. I'm taking Simons over Sexton because I am personally of the belief, if you are a small guard who does not take a ton of threes, and you also aren't a great playmaker or like S tier at driving to the basket, the odds are you probably have a pretty big cap on your potential, and that's the case with Sexton. Meanwhile, Anthony Simons is a little bit bigger, probably about similar as a playmaker. However, he is an unbelievable 3-point shot creator and overall 3-point shooter. I believe he shot like 48% on pull-up threes last year, and he shoots like 9 threes overall a game. Like, that kind of value as a shot creator, as a guard, that kind of shooting, the percentage that he shot, the volume that he shot, the degree of difficulty, the mixing of on and off ball, like that kind of shooter, Anthony Simons is someone you should really look out for next year, because I genuinely think he's going to surprise a lot of people, because many people were not watching the Blazers last year, which makes sense. But if they're able to take Simons and then next year they still get Darius Garland, then that's going to be a hell of an offensive backcourt, let me tell you. For the New York Knicks, I'm going to go with Mikal Bridges. There's not a lot to go on here. There's not a lot of fun to add to this. This could also potentially interrupt RJ Barrett going forward, and RJ Barrett definitely fits more the archetype of a star player than Mikal Bridges, who's just like a crazy good role player. And I would honestly, I don't know, Mikal in New York, it's like they need some sort of star type of player, but that's not really available at this point. I guess maybe if the Knicks were really doing this, they'd probably take Colin Sexton here, but I'm going to take Mikal Bridges just because he's the best player. But the more I think about it, I don't love Mikal in New York just because, I mean, what's the point really? And I just realized that my number 10 pick doesn't really make sense. My number 10 pick is the Sixers pick, and I was going to take Wendell Carter Jr. They have Joel Embiid. Why would they take Wendell, Jacob? Why did you write that down? Why would you take a center here? You know what? Let's just switch the picks, just for the sake of it being more fun and making more sense. Let's say the Knicks take Wendell Carter, because honestly, he makes more sense for them. And the Sixers take Mikal Bridges, because he makes more sense for them. Match made in heaven, way better. Even though I think Mikal is a better prospect than Wendell, if this is just simply in order of the 10 best players, but it's not how redrafts work. It's not the order of the 10 best players, Jacob. Get your shit together. Anyways, Mikal Bridges is a Sixer, Wendell Carter is a Knick. That's how this thing is ending. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, but that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for NBA content like this, and kitty out your music.